Even though we're spiritual beings, we could live our whole life on autopilot, reacting to life and events as we always have, saying, well, this is just who I am. And we'd be right because our neural pathways are wired that way. From that place, things, well, they seem obvious, it's easy. Choices are made out of habit. We don't question ourselves. You know, we go on. But then one day, something sparks a desire for change within us, for a wider life, for deeper coherence, aliveness, for a connection with the divinity we believe in. And then we realize something essential. If we do not feel connected or aligned with Source, it is not because of external circumstances. See, others have gone through so much pain, and yet they found their connection, serenity, ease, and love. So that's not the criteria. What if it's because we don't yet know how to believe in a way that lets us feel what we say we believe in? The good news is, if you feel disconnected, unaligned, or heavy, it is not because Source has abandoned you. And it is not because you're broken. It is because through the repetition of life, survival, through pain, fear, and the training of your nervous system, you have learned to assign a meaning to events, to life, and to yourself that is smaller than the divinity you believe in. And that meaning, in turn, makes you feel far from Source, which means we don't need to fix who we are. We need to rewire how we think. That's different. It's not the person the problem, it's the way we think, right? So, thinking, the first thing, it's not an inner monologue. It's the act of returning to alignment in a moving world. When you direct your attention to perceive coherence, it's a choice, it's a practice. It means to work on our beliefs in order to make them coherent with unconditional love and to convince ourselves of them through logic. The act of thinking has three specific dimensions. There's sensing the frequency, which could be compared to a compass, giving you direction in change, being arrested, stopped by beauty. That's the anchor. That's the calm vastness that resides within, the stability in the uncertainty. It's when your neural pathways and your nervous system finally, okay? There's filtering thoughts. So they really align with what you believe in. It's bringing clarity in uncertainty, choosing this thought fits or doesn't fit with what I believe in. I keep it or I don't. You have that choice. You have that capacity in yourself. So let's go deeper. Let's look at them. Thinking as active recognition. Through thinking is an aesthetic act. When you steward your attention toward what is coherent, you stay with it until your neural pathways click into alignment. True concentration is actually an expansion. It is the moment the survival mind falls silent and we allow ourselves to be captured by coherence. It is the practice of staying arrested by beauty until our own inner wiring begin to rhyme with the Source. You can orient yourself toward beauty at any time you choose to. You can look at the light of the sun, even on a gray day, and get absorbed by it. The ocean, the wind, and the trees. You can notice the thing you do that takes you so fully that time stops. That absorption is not distraction, it's recognition. It's the nervous system remembering a deeper order. Each time you are arrested by beauty, you are physically paving a new royal highway of connections in your brain that bypasses the old survival mind. It's the apex of thought. We have been taught that thinking is something we do with words, but the most profound thinking is wordless recognition. You know, did you know that they are the researchers have found that many mammals, like bears, for instance, stop everything they're doing and go watch a sunset. They sit down and they contemplate. So when a bear stops everything it does to watch the sunset, it isn't blank, it is engaged in a high speed alignment with the coherence of the world. It is thinking with its entire nervous system. When you practice active recognition, you aren't meditating to escape the world, you are witnessing the world so intensely that your brain clicks into the frequency of the source. You are using awe as a mental tool to burn away the mental chatter. Your brain just stops talking finally. This active recognition can be done while walking, eating, and it's so good that it just fills all your senses, or while looking into the eyes of someone you love. In turns, thinking, it turns thinking into an aesthetic act. Mathematician can tell you that they're looking for elegance in mathematics. That's amazing. Coherence is something that is harmonious. The second thinking is a sensing frequency. Before a thought becomes a sentence, because we think with words, right? We just said it before. But before a thought becomes a sentence, it is a vibration in your subconscious mind. It then spreads to your body as a contraction or an expansion. But here we'll talk more about the contraction because that's what are stopping us from having the best relationship with our divinity that we can think of, right? So, therefore, you can only start thinking consciously the moment you notice what is happening in your body. When you notice the contraction. If you really pay attention, if you become really aware of what's going on in your body, you'll be able to know before you can put words onto it. There's a gap between your subconscious mind that deals with like 11 million bits of information per second, your body reacting to it, and then the conscious mind, which handles about, 40 to 50 bits of info per sec. That takes the data and put it into words. By the time it catches up, you're late, right? You don't have time to catch yourself. You don't have time. When the words are done, when the words are formed, it's too late for you to change, to create a new neural pathways. So You can perceive the ugliness of the contraction before it even becomes a sentence. That's the trick. This isn't a theory, it's a physical fact. It doesn't feel good. So if you are aware of the doesn't feel good, you'll succeed in changing yourself for your bigger happiness, more fulfilling life. And it doesn't matter if you are in a skyscraper in New York or a village in Russia, your body knows the difference between a yes and a no. That's how we're wired. Our body will react to our subconscious mind. We all share the same inner architecture. When we betray life, when we go against it, we contract. This isn't a judgment from above, it's not a punishment. It's your own biology signaling an incoherence. It's the ugliness of a logic error felt in the guts. And when we honor life, we expand, we relax, we find ourselves at ease. Not always comfortably, immediately, nor easily, because sometimes they are hard choices, but directionally, in depth, over time, right? The body gives us coherence. You could say that this is mindfulness with a purpose. It's being mindful of what's happening in the body, but to help you set your course. This become your biological compass. Concretely, look at that. This is what happens. First, you perceive. This is neutral. It has no meaning yet. It's just information you perceive. Let's say you perceive criticism. Okay, someone is unhappy with what you did because there's positive criticism, but we're not talking about that one. So you hear negative criticism, then you give it meaning. That's all happening in your subconscious mind. You're on autopilot right now, okay? Negative criticism, meaning. In a fraction of a second, your brain compares this information to your highway of neural connections, your habit of survival. And it concludes, ooh, this is a threat to who I am. This is a threat to my belonging, to my safety. So the signal is sent, a threat. Your body reacts. So how does the body react to a threat? 3 ways: fight, flight, or freeze. So it prepares to hide, attack, or defend. Your chest might tighten. Your heart beats more rapidly. Maybe your palms get sweaty. It's not a fun place to be, right? But nothing is already conscious. Then you go to survival strategy because you have to choose how you'll deal with that. And it's different from one person to another because we have different values, we've been raised differently. Okay, so you default to what you've learned, to your neural pathways, which can be to stay safe and restore peace. I must be quiet. I must shrink. I must not stand out. That's one option. And the verbal conclusion. When your consciousness finally catches up, it's like it makes a conclusion and justifies the strategy, justifies the shrinking by saying, you know what, anyways, I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. And in between the body's reaction and the conscious conclusion is where the magic happens. In this millisecond of millions of bits of information, you can pause. And you can reroute your neurons, create a new pathway. You can catch yourself right in time to choose differently by going back to number two, the meaning you gave to the criticism in the first place. This is how you can rewire yourself, how you can choose a new meaning or a new belief and act accordingly. In order to do that, though, you have to have a logical belief system ready to be used, right? Ready to be put in place. Replacement beliefs, so you can commit to them. And this is where the next part takes all its importance. So 3, thinking as architectural alignment. You English people have like really weird pronouncing words. Architectural alignment. The third and last. Which is also the one where I get into my zone of genius. That's where I'm good at. Okay, this is mental fidelity, checking every incoming idea against your north, where your compass is pointing, your source fact. Okay, everything that comes in. Does this thought honor my essence, or does it try to sell me a lie about my limitation? This is how you release mental states that degrade you and cultivate mental states that fulfill you. This is what Buddhists would call the right effort, not as morality, but as coherence. How do we do this concretely? Okay. First, let's name the everyday problem this kind of thinking reveals. See, as spiritual being, we have often been told that the key question is just ask yourself, what would love do in this situation? Can you relate? And then we think, well, God is love, therefore I should act as love. This sounds noble, simple, almost sufficient, as if love were a self-evident guide that would naturally lead us toward goodness and peace. But then, which love are we talking about? And how do we love? Who do we love? See, this question collapses under its own vagueness because love has been confused with so many things that it no longer gives direction. And to be honest, well, I got stuck there for a long time. What is love? I mean, in the name of love, we may have learned to sacrifice ourselves, to remain passive in the face of violence, to forget who we are, to erase our needs, to tolerate what destroys us. See, slowly, love has become a fog rather than a compass. And it gets worse if you look at it on a larger scale. Love has fueled wars, torture, and killing. Groups have rejected others out of love, convinced they possessed the only legitimate definition of it. They labeled others as wrong, ugly, defective, freaks of nature, animals, as if they held a monopoly on love. It seems as if anything can be projected onto it. Submission can be called love, domination, pain. Entire lives are sometimes built on the idea that to love means to suffer, to stay in violent relationship, Oh, yeah, but I love him. Yeah, but do you love yourself? To accept what violates us and to call this, you know, spiritual maturity? Really? When in fact, you know, something in us is slowly contracting, becoming smaller, losing circulation, losing truth, losing the sense of being faithful to itself. A part of us just stops shining. You can believe in love and still betray yourself in its name, you see. I've done it. Unfortunately, I've done it. And I've seen so many people stay in relationships that were not fulfilling, or worse, that did not allow them to be their most beautiful self simply because, well, they love. Who do they love? They forget that love was never meant to dim their own light in the first place. And when we look closely, we realize that what human beings usually mean by love is often one of these: affection, preference, familiarity, emotional safety, possessiveness, your mind. See, we love those we love. And we forget to love those we don't know or those who are different. Let's admit it, our love is small. It does not always extend to our neighbor. Oh, it would be convenient if love was defined by proximity, similarity, sympathy, or reciprocity. But love is not put to practice by who you love easily. The practice is in loving bigger, loving more, loving even when it's hard. So perhaps how you love is revealed by who you exclude. And, you know, human beings cannot live with a word as fast as love without a way to recognize when it is alive and when it has been betrayed. Love as a criterion was not enough, and love as an emotion does not hold. Part of the reason love has been so distorted is fear. Fear has had a monopoly on love for a very long time. Don't do this or you will go to hell. Every religion has its own version of it. But what if this fear of hell was actually creating it here in our lives through negative thoughts, negative states, and negative emotions? Unconditional love cannot create fear. It forgives immediately. It has no desire for punishment. It needs nothing. So, a criterion that works through fear or through guilt, shame, self blame, humiliation. Did I forget any? Cannot be yours because it can't come from unconditional love. And that's why I started looking for another kind of criterion, another kind of north, something that could carry love without being bent by human fear and confusion. We do not need more morals, more rules, or more commandment. We certainly do not need fear to tell us what is right. But we do need a criterion that can be tested in the body and in the soul at the same time. Something that does not come from ideology but from lived experience. Something, that can help us set our course that serves as a compass. You know, when it gets tough, sometimes like you've got to make a decision and you just don't know what decision is the best one, and you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. But if you know what's your goal, what's your north, what's your not goal, but direction, where you want to go, like how you want to act, it makes it easier. Something that allows us to use the 3 dimension of thinking that we've named. How it has to be universal enough to transcend cultures, religions, sexual orientations, and interpretations. Because a spirituality that excludes human beings is not based on unconditional love. It must also preserve full sovereignty and freedom. A guide that does not command, does not threaten, and does not shame, but respects the intelligence and freedom of life itself. I gave myself a lot of work with that, okay? It also has to allow us to recognize when love is alive and when it has been betrayed. Because you can justify humiliation and violence in the name of love. You can really do that. But you cannot justify incoherence in the name of alignment. So it must be something we can practice too. Something that reshapes perception, sensation, and meaning, and creates new neural pathways towards coherence. And it must include our human nature, the animal, the mammal that we are. Not to deny it, to repress it, to shame it, to blame it, but to delight in incarnation, to bring it into coherence with something greater. We are wonderful beings because the body is not a mistake, you see? Incarnation is not a punishment, it's a joy. And joy is one of the languages of the divine in my views. So all this has to fit not only in ideal situation, but also in the tragic and ambiguous crossroads of human life. My criterion, well, it's not only mine, but I mean, the one that I was looking for, it has to stand even in the face of all the ugliness that's happening in humanity. Something that does not accuse, but informs. But, you know, it's not a rule, but it's a form of intelligence. And you know what? I have found something that can be our compass. Something that allows the brain and the body to work together to recognize coherence beyond rules and fear. It is the form love takes when it becomes visible to us. And this is what we will explore in our next conversation: the physics of beauty.